Welcome back to part 2 of our discussion with Ms. Latasha Harrison, the founder of the Louisville Parent Teacher Organization, or PTO. We're following up this discussion from last week where we discussed the student assignment plan and the tax increase. Today we zero in on the student assignment plan, and this is a topic, again, not necessarily associated with the tax increase, but very closely related. So we want to inform the parents in our community exactly what this means for the Black community, which is what we try to do here every week on the principal's office. So again, Latasha, let's kind of pick up where we left off, talking about the student assignment plan. And Jefferson County's plan for the student assignment plan really focuses on West Louisville. And in that regard, they focus on Shawnee High School and building a new middle school. What else are you aware of that's included in this plan?
You know, it's crazy that the focus is only the West End schools. And it's crazy because I can't believe that it's is it 85% of students out of the West End are bused out to all the schools in different locations, and nobody in the East End, unless they want to, are bused out?
Well, the actual numbers around that is there are approximately 36,000 Black children in JCPS. When you remove the students who score proficient and distinguished that are Black throughout the entire district, and when you remove those students who go to Shawnee, which is a key part of the program, as well as Grace James or Du Bois, you're talking about roughly 24,000 Black students. So 12,000 are accounted for or have been helped previously, but there's another 24,000 Black students in our community that are kind of left out of the plan. And so we're talking today about how JCPS needs to address that plan, and just share with us some of the concerns that you've mentioned before.
I know one of the proposals is to have a dual reside for the kids in the West End. So what is the option? They should have dual resides in the East End. Well,
and that's exactly one of the points of contention. So in the current student assignment proposal plan that will go before the board before the end of the 2020 school year in December, students in the West End, almost entire West End, and that includes downtown Louisville, will have an option to go to Shawnee High School, or they can have an option to go to one school outside of the West End. Now, that's kind of been the same, except Shawnee hasn't been a choice before. The going to a school outside has been. The difficulty is it was almost broken up street by street where you could go. So this street might go to Wagner, and this street might go to Dawes, or this street might go to Ballard. In the new plan, it's an entire neighborhood that would have the option of going to one outside school, outside of the West End. So you'd go to Shawnee High School, or you'd go to one school outside of the West End, or you could apply for a magnet. And so one of the things you're pointing out is that students in West Louisville have that option, but it isn't the same way outside of West Louisville. And the problem with that is?
Because, you know, me personally, I'm tired of our kids getting mistreated. Like, why are we always the scapegoat for everything?
The burden is on, again, Black children, Black families in diversifying this city. And in this, we're actually removing some of the options, again, resegregating schools. And so that's a conversation that probably we need to have another time as well, because after 40 years in a district that hasn't done much for you, you start to wonder if maybe resegregating our neighborhood schools under different conditions might actually be an option. But working with the current option we have now, and we talk about student assignment, let's focus on a couple of the points that they've raised. And so again, what would be your concern with Shawnee High School, or do you have one with Shawnee?
I think it's a good thing that they're investing in creating where the third level, so more students can come into the school. I am a little bit concerned that I hope that they put the resources into the school that they need, because you can add additions and you can add new schools and you can add middle schools, high schools, but if they don't have the right resources that is needed, you're going to be right at ground zero again.
It's funny that you mentioned ground zero and the right resources, because for Shawnee High School to be the focus of this student assignment plan, you have to know that the major resource that they need for their airplane magnet and aeronautical engineering magnet is what you call an airline simulator. So in order for students to graduate with their pilot's license, it's important that they have the resource of an airline simulator. And right now, Shawnee High School does not have one. It costs roughly $100,000, but it also can be much cheaper if there's a connection between Shawnee High School and the Association of African American Black Pilots. And that relationship has been cut off, from my understanding, for several years. So we challenge JCPS to reconnect the Association of Black Pilots with Shawnee High School willingly and effortlessly so that they can actually get that airplane simulator.
Wow, I didn't even know that.
Yeah, that's one of the things that we want to continue to inform our community and our public about. These are things that you need to know. So in other words, if Shawnee High School is the choice for West Louisville, and kids are saying, okay, well, I didn't think Shawnee was a choice, but they have a airplane program, an air pilot program, in which I can actually become someone who flies planes by the time I graduate. It's important that they have that resource available to them.
Right.
And so when we talk about resources for those other 24,000 children, what are some other things that you come to mind?
I'm thinking about programs, thinking about like life living classes, talking about life in general. They took so many different things out of school, like even home economics. We used to have shop in school. We need to give our kids more options because, college is amazing and it is a choice.
Right.
But all kids don't want to go to college. We have to expand the resources so that they can have hope.
Okay, so let's talk about that, because that's an area that, you mentioned, but I'm curious as to what has been the conversations with the Jefferson County Public Schools and the parent-teacher organization that you're a founder of, and other community groups that come from the parents to discuss the things that they really want with the student assignment plan. Are you aware of what those conversations have been?
The crazy thing is that people are not really informed about the student assignment plan. I've had several discussions with people, and they didn't even know that it existed to the what it is. Like, they didn't know that Shawnee, the kids in the West End, are the only ones bust out. It's nothing that they're communicating. So we have to do a better job as giving the information out to the public.
And one of the things that, we were talking about before the show, even today, is that sometimes that's intentional, and that's part of the system that has to be broken and rebuilt, because when you don't communicate effectively with the people that are being affected, it is not their fault. It is not the responsibility of every parent to do this research. They select board members and they support administration at the district level that actually are working on the best interests of their children. And so it's important that we do our jobs as those that are informed, but more importantly, as district administration and board members, and making sure that this information comes out in a way that people can really understand. And my brother, who's a lawyer, has always told me if the average person can't read it, that was on purpose. It was meant to be confusing. It was meant to throw people off and make you say, that's enough, I give up. I don't even want to know more about it. So when we talk about student assignment, one of the things you mentioned on last week's episode was also about the curriculum being inclusive throughout our county for our students. And then one of the things that I heard Dr. Polio talk about and advocate is that between the tax increase and student assignment proposal, that will help close the achievement gap or reduce it by 50%. Where do you stand on that?
Yeah, that's what he did make that statement. It depends on the resources again. It really goes back to what are you going to be putting into the schools where our kids are. You can say a whole lot of things, but what is the plan to put in action?
What is going to be different? What is going to change other than the last 40 years? That's the question. And that's really the meat of it. And you know, on this, I have to tell you that I am not confused at all after just leaving the school system. As a principal for over 22 years, I can tell you that I am very concerned. Elementary schools are not a part of this proposal at all. And right now there are close to 13, 14 schools in Jefferson County that serve elementary students that are almost all black. And by all, almost, I'm saying over 95% black and 95% poor. And we qualify that with free and reduced lunch. Having said that, there is no plan for elementary students in this new student assignment plan. And so that's something that we definitely need to look at. Now, before we came on the air this time, Latasha asked me to kind of talk a little bit about the 65% poverty plan. And I'll share with you all that this is something I've studied for the past several years, because what's the definition of insanity? Doing the same thing, expecting a different result. And again, for the last 40, 50 years in JCPS, we've done the same thing as it relates to our black children. We've used them as guinea pigs to leave their communities to go out. This time we're turning it around and we're saying, okay, well, some of you can stay closer to home. And again, we say some, we're still not talking about 2,000 of the 24,000 students that are left that would actually be able to stay close to home. But when we say that, we've got to look at what could be done differently to stop the insanity. And one of the suggestions is we've tried to make on Principal Pennix and being honest and solution focused is a plan that would cause for schools to be assigned enrolled students at a 65% poverty rate and no more than. So right now, the district average for poverty, the district average of students that qualify for free and reduced lunch across the entire district is 65%. That means that in the entire student population, 65% qualify for free and reduced lunch. Well, the more you go over that 65% threshold, the more trauma, drama, and pain that comes with it. Not any fault or condition of those people, and not any excuse of those people, but we understand that we are not a problem people, but we are people with problems that have existed because it's in the very root of our DNA here in America. And so considering that, if every school were at that 65% mark, we could spread poverty out. We could spread poverty out throughout our district. And that, I believe, can actually reduce the achievement gap. It would allow for no school to be over 65%. As schools get closer to that figure, there's adjustments made at schools to make sure that no one goes over that. What that does is it doesn't concentrate that trauma, drama, and pain in a handful of schools and make them perform year after year in the low performing category. And I speak of something I know personally, because if you show me a list of the bottom 10 schools in JCPS performing today and go back 10 years, it was those same 10 schools. Mm-hmm. Maybe one of them was number 12, but I'm sure if you go back 10 years past that, it was the same 12. Nothing has changed. It's time for us to make some hard decisions as a compassionate city about what that looks like. Your thoughts?
I think that is an amazing plan. I know that when you get to those schools that you were speaking of that have more than the 65%, and you have teachers that are frustrated, you have lack of resources, it's so much chaos created. So if you level the field, I think it will work.
Well, and one of the things we talk about, because a lot of people say, and I love the fact that you focused on resources, because those could be a myriad of things. A lot of people say, well, let's make sure we have, the right teachers. Let's make sure that we have this or we have that. And all of that is important. But coming from a school that was at the top in terms of poverty and black, the trauma, drama, and pain associated with that cannot be underestimated on the wear and tear of the staff. And so even the best staff, I tell everybody, there's about a 3 to 5 year maximum amount of years that they should really invest in schools like that. For no different than what you would say for a doctor in New York City's major hospital dealing with gunshot wounds. After 3 to 5 years of dealing with other people's trauma and drama and pain, it becomes like secondhand smoke. You know, after the first year, you start saying, my clothes smell like it. The second year, you start coughing a little bit. And the third year, the doctor tells you, if this continues, you too will have lung cancer. Mm-hmm. Well, that's what happens to teachers who work in high-need schools. Well, that's what happens to principals in high-need schools. They come in with the best of intention, energy, enthusiasm, and even expertise. But after that 3 to 5 year part, it really begins to wear on them, because it is a daily grind. And so how do we eliminate that? One of the ways is to spread in our compassionate city some of that trauma, drama, and pain, and making sure that not any group of schools bears the burden for all. So we've talked about a lot of different issues. I don't want to continue to take all the conversation, but Latasha, tell us some other things that may be of concern to you, or some things that you want to discuss that maybe we didn't.
In regards to the student assignment?
Or the tax increase.
My primary focus with the tax increase is to make sure that we get the resources. And I wish that JCPS would be more intentional in involving people that are in the community to see what is needed. Like, really work with the parents.
Can I ask you what that looks like? What would be your solution or a concept to further explore? How do we talk to the parents?
Because I was a part of the governor's leadership that he has. It's called JCPS.
Okay.
And one of the things that we were trained on was actually to go into the schools and survey the parents and see what their needs are. And I know there's supposed to be divisions in the schools where they're supposed to do that, but it's really not happening. And actually work with the parents, like one-on-one with the parents, and see what the needs are. And every school is different. So don't try to put a rubber stamp on every school. They have different needs. Mm-hmm. They have plans that need to be differently with every school. I know that when my kids went to Price Elementary, I was the PTA president there, and it was mostly Black students there. It was in a neighborhood school for us, 5 minutes away from the house. And I was a very involved parent, but it was hard to get parents involved. And one of the reasons why it's hard for parents to get involved is because we put so many different expectations on them, you know. And one of the things that I tried to do while I was there is I tried to allow them to give what they could, you know, allow them to be who they are and give what they can. Because some of them have 2 or 3 jobs. They want to be involved with their kids, but it's like, am I going to not go to work or to put food on the table, or I'm going to try to do this? You know, they have to balance it all.
Or am I going to take my one day off that I have at home with my family and my kids to go to the school to do something different? And so there are a lot of hard choices and sacrifices that as parents we have to make. But as leaders in the school and in the community, it's up to us to look at new ways to reach out so that it doesn't become a burden for any parent to be involved in their child's education. And hopefully that's what we've done for you over the course of the past 2 weeks. We provided you with some answers to some questions that maybe you had about the tax increase or about the student assignment plan that JCPS takes a vote on before the end of this year. We hope that you've been informed or at least encouraged to investigate just a little bit more by calling your board member, by staying tuned to JCPS website or to their Facebook page to find out the very latest information. We also encourage you again to call your board member with those questions. Send your questions in when there are board meetings. They provide an opportunity for you to do that on their homepage, but it's important that you stay connected during this season so that as we move forward, we get better and stronger each and every year. I'm Michelle Pennix, and I have been joined for the past 2 weeks with Latasha Harrison of the Louisville PTO. She is the founder, and we have learned so much from her time with us here today. So again, we want to say thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me.
And we want you to know that it's a wrap for today. You've been the best this week and last week. This conversation continues every week as we learn what is best for our Black children, Black adults in our community to make sure they're able to take advantage of the education opportunities that are available. So next week, join us same time, same place. Remember, as always, to God be the glory.